Good evening again, everyone, and welcome. We heard earlier from the Chancellor about how our recovery is now gathering pace. And the CBI's economic forecast released last week increased our projections for this year's GDP growth to 3% and next year's to 2.7%, which confirms that the UK is recovering. We have the fastest growing economy in Europe. Our output has been improving across the board, and activity in manufacturing, service and retail sectors has been particularly impressive. Our recent industrial trends survey points to optimism, recovering investment intentions, and an economic outlook which appears strong and broad-based. Yet, there are significant uncertainties which threaten to undermine our progress. Although the coalition government should be, as I said earlier, commended for its actions so far on deficit reduction, this is still not complete, and we have got some way to go. We still have one of the largest budget deficits in the OECD. We have yet to see any significant improvement in productivity, the real anchor of sustainable long-term growth, rising wages, and increasing living standards, which is so essential after 5 long years of economic downturn. The latest figures from the ONS show that UK productivity is on average 21% lower than our main competitors in the G7. This shortfall is the most significant for 2 decades. As the labour market strengthens, we will of course see some improvement, but fostering a culture in which enterprise and innovation can be encouraged and rewarded, coupled with increasing levels of business investment, will take us more quickly towards closing the productivity gap. A sustained improvement also rests on addressing the low levels of skills in our workforce. It is clear that in some of our key industries, we continue to be faced with major skills shortages. Education has been a long-standing problem. Immigration is part of the solution. And then there remains a great degree of global economic and political uncertainty, the risk of deflation in the Eurozone, China's slowing growth rates, instability in the Middle East, as well as long-term rising levels of global income disparity and trade imbalances. As the Chancellor mentioned, the situation in Ukraine has also reminded us how geopolitical issues can quickly grow into conflict and instability. This makes it even more critical that we don't damage ourselves domestically unnecessarily. We must avoid ill-considered policies that might be popular but could undermine our recovery. Over the next 18 months, we face various challenges, starting tomorrow with European elections, then the Scottish referendum, the general election, and then a possible EU referendum in 2017. As our economic situation has stabilized and now looks more promising, the focus of business concern has shifted towards these issues. And the uncertainty they engender is climbing up businesses' risk registers, becoming a factor in investment decisions. Foremost in my mind at the moment is the Scottish referendum. The decision on independence is, of course, for the Scottish people. But the effects of the decision will be felt by others, including businesses not just in Scotland, but in Wales, Northern Ireland, and England. The CBI has the right and the duty to ask the difficult questions about issues which affect our members' interests and this country's economic future. And we will continue to do so without fear or favour, because in the context of the possible breakup of the United Kingdom, there is a lot at stake, directly and indirectly. After more than 3 centuries of working together and respecting our individual cultural differences, we have significant common economic interests. We should have no fear of drawing strength from the deep stake we all have in our union. We have a powerful and trusted voice in an increasingly interconnected world, a strong diplomatic network, a reputation for honest and fair trade, and we are stronger, safer, and can make more of a difference by working together. We are a creative, imaginative, and innovative country, and our ideas are better minted for greater effect by working together. We have a successful internal market of over 60 million people, and Scotland's biggest export market, constituting 65% of all exports, is the rest of the UK. Because our nations are so closely integrated, drawing an international border between us would create costs for businesses and households on both sides of the border. These issues are not adequately addressed in the Independence White Paper, in spite of the fact that the CBI set out over 200 very specific questions to the Scottish Government in 2012 and 2013. The UK has the scale and resilience, as has been demonstrated, to deal with the economic headwinds and fluctuations in world markets. As a separate country, Scotland will find it much more challenging to balance income and expenditure when critical tax revenues from its oil and gas, by their nature volatile, fluctuate from year to year and ultimately decline over time. Scotland's economy is now showing real signs of continued growth. Employment has reached its highest level since 1992, and output from its manufacturing and service sectors is increasing. But, as we've learnt, a sound economic future depends on sound public finances. At 8.3%, Scotland's deficit is larger than the UK's as a whole and represents £2,303 for every person in Scotland last year. On the crucial issue of the pound, it is clear that even if it had been accepted, which it has not, a sterling union would lack many of the conditions that are required for a stable currency to function. We have shared the pound for 307 years. It took just 33 days for Czechoslovakian monetary union to collapse following the separation into the Czech Republic and Slovakia in 1993. The precise details are, of course, very different, and the timing would be very different, but the moral of the story and the risk remain the same. The questions around EU membership also have no clear-cut answers. It would, for sure, be a complex process for Scotland to secure EU membership after having succeeded from the UK. If, as I expect would ultimately be the case, Scotland did join the EU, it would have to negotiate to get back in, and its terms of membership would not necessarily match the overall favourable terms already established. There is the strong possibility that Scotland would have to commit to joining the euro and the banking union and have to sign up to Schengen. Together, our advantages are maximised. Of course, it is understandable that Scotland would like some things to be done differently. We agree, and that they can be. We can achieve this change together, making the most of devolution, and alongside our allies in Europe who want reform, completion of the single market, with no further integration of and respect for those outside the Eurozone. Ultimately, because of the range of unknown and unforeseen consequences of this referendum, it is very difficult to see how independence will be better for investment and jobs. The case has not been made that an independent Scotland will be better for our economy in Scotland or in the United Kingdom as a whole. This is why, at a time when we're successfully working together through the recovery and where conditions are working in our favour, the business community can and should speak up to ensure the Scottish people have the full economic facts in front of them when they make their choice in September. And also because the majority of businesses across this country want Scotland to stay in the United Kingdom, working together with them for our common prosperity within a reformed European Union. Which brings me to the second major risk we face, which is Britain's place in a reformed EU. Business is in no doubt that the UK must retain and secure its global future, trading and investing. Open markets are an essential part of our open economy. We cannot be at our best when in isolation. We have to face outwards, keep connected to the world, and embrace the opportunities afforded to us by being based in the EU. It is a fact that economies and businesses are globally interconnected by goods, services, finance, and people. And the growth and jobs we need depend on that connectedness. It makes us more resilient, more dynamic, and increases our level of innovation through competition and consumer access. It is our membership of the European single market, the biggest trading bloc in the world, generating 11 trillion in economic activity, giving us access to 500 million people and 21 million companies, which allows a basis for UK firms to play their global role. It is an indispensable gateway to the world's trade. And our ability to maintain access is under threat. We accept that calling a referendum on EU membership is a constitutional issue for government. But even the possibility of it happening hasn't caused uncertainty for business, with the risk of fewer inward investments that would otherwise have been made. Of course, the EU is far from perfect. Our membership certainly has its costs and its frustrations. But much like our union here in the United Kingdom, the advantages of the EU far outweigh the disadvantages. We have allies abroad and widespread agreement at home for the need to reform the EU. It needs a bold, ambitious agenda to make it more competitive, more Lisbon agenda than Lisbon Treaty, to be pragmatic, an efficient place to do business, fit for the needs of the world today. My third and final risk concerns the uncertainty which inevitably comes from being less than a year away from the next general election. There is no doubt that the challenges we face during the next Parliament require business support. We recognize our responsibilities, and it is true that we have sometimes fallen short. If we don't live up to public expectation, we cannot be credible in the debates about Britain's future. But we are ready and able to make our contribution. Business is a force for good. We have already created more than 1 million new jobs during this downturn and period of significant uncertainty. The overwhelming majority of companies are committed to making a positive contribution in many different ways to the communities in which they work. As all the parties develop their plans for the next government, I want to set out a few guiding principles we would urge them to follow. First and foremost, stick with what's working from this Parliament. Where the right steps have been taken, they should be built upon, not reversed for reasons of political ideology, left or right. We've made progress on implementing a much-needed coherent industrial strategy that champions key sectors of the economy. A positive business tax environment has increased our attractiveness to investors on a global stage, and the dynamic efficiency of a flexible labor market has seen us back on the path to prosperity. And protecting these successes and jobs must be a priority. Secondly, tackling the UK's long-term economic challenges mean that tough calls still need to be made and cannot be any longer ducked. Be they around aviation capacity, increasing housing supply to meet ever-increasing demand, skills shortages, keeping up the pace of public service reform, or undertaking a wholesale review of our broken business rate system. Bold decisions will be needed in the early days of the next Parliament. Finally, politics of whatever direction cannot be put before securing investment and opportunities. Policies have to make the right kind of differences. Businesses are pragmatic. We understand the realities of election time, and we're not expecting our politicians to give up on being political or even populist. But announcements which end up deterring innovation, restraining investment, or reducing our ability to help deliver prosperity do not instill in the business community with confidence, that be they around unrealistic immigration targets, penal tax rates, leaving Europe, or ill-considered market interventions, or breaking up the banks. And on that point, let's take our financial services industry. Through the wide range of banking, legal, accounting, and insurance services it provides, it is critically important to the United Kingdom economy. Yet, the cumulative impact of measures being dictated by Washington, Brussels, London, and Frankfurt will, if we are not careful, put at risk the huge value of this industry to London and the whole of the United Kingdom, and indeed, in my view, to the European Union. We need to refocus on how important this industry is to recognize, whilst not there yet, positive changes are definitely underway, and make sure that individual policies add to a regulatory environment which supports growth with much higher levels of global coordination that are necessary to ensure financial stability. It is our belief that a pro-enterprise culture helps bed in prosperity for all by creating a society full of opportunity and endeavor. Improved productivity can benefit everyone. This is the only way that we can ensure a sustainable improvement in the minimum wage, rather than using legislative override or undermining the low-paid commission. We in the CBI remain politically neutral, and we will make judgments based on facts about what the best conditions are for businesses to grow, compete, and create jobs. We are not long out of some of the most troubling economic times of recent history, not long emerged from a recession which stands as one of the greatest peacetime crises we've ever experienced. Understanding the scale of what we're still yet to face, and balancing that with a vision of the sort of country we all want to live in demands strong and pragmatic leadership from all of our politicians. Public decision should have at their heart ideas that foster an environment that brings about the best in and the best for everybody. Whether you're the businesswoman launching your own tech startup, the schoolboy about to sit his GCSEs, the entrepreneur who's trying to break into emerging markets, or the global CEO heading up a workforce of thousands. These policies, which aim to build a better Britain with business at its heart, are the policies that we'll be judging politicians on between now and next May. If politicians create the right environment, we will deliver the sustainable prosperity the country needs and deserves. Thank you very much.